Good afternoon, everybody. Um, so today, I think, is an important press conference. I mean, we have a lot of press conferences. There's a lot of issues that Alaska has to deal with, as well as our biggest city, Anchorage, Alaska. Um, but if you remember, in the January State of the State speech that I gave, brought up the issue of crime, and that we're all working on crime. That across the state of Alaska, we've been driving down crime, and also in the city of Anchorage, the folks there have also been driving down crime. The issue has always been for the state and the city that our crime rates have always been too high to begin with. We're starting at a baseline of crime that is just way too high, way too unacceptable. I mentioned that in some respects it's baked into our culture. And I don't mean cultures from rural Alaska. I mean just the culture of Alaska, a lot of tolerance over the decades of crime. Well, we've come to the conclusion that that doesn't really work for Alaska, certainly doesn't work for Alaskans. And so we began a kind of a journey to understand deeper the issues of crime. Why is it happening? How is it happening? Are the criminals being held to account? Where is a lot of the crime happening, et cetera? And what we found out is we have crime all over the state. There's no doubt about it. But we have a lot of crime in our biggest city. And that's understandable. A lot of our big cities nationwide have crime in them for a whole host of reasons: concentration of people, anonymity when you commit a crime, the ability to disappear within the masses. The list goes on and on. But we now have tools available to us. We have understandings, more understanding on how crime occurs, who's involved. And so with that, we began a conversation with our counterparts in Anchorage, with the mayor, Mayor Lafrance. And pretty quickly, we both realized that, yeah, crime's a problem. Crime's a problem everywhere in the state of Alaska, including in the city of Anchorage, and that as executives, we have a duty to deal with this crime to make sure this is as safe a place as possible. And not just the state, but Anchorage as well. And what we found is that there are areas that we could collaborate on that don't necessarily have a budgetary big ticket item that we would have to go to the legislature for or assemblies for, but things that we can close the gaps on, things that we can close the loop on so that criminals can't exist within that ether or within those holes, within how we deal with certain things at the state level, how we deal with certain things at the city level. And so we put a lot of money into public safety, the state has over the years, and I'm sure Anchorage has put money into it as well, and the mayor can talk to that here in a moment. And we see crime being driven down considerably in the state. We see it going down in Anchorage once again. But since roughly 38% of Alaskans live in Anchorage, we have a duty and obligation to work closely with the municipality to ensure that we have the same results, if not better, in our largest city. And so today we're here to give you an update. Today we're here to talk about where we are now with the first phase of this crime approach to getting rid of crime and hitting crime as hard as we possibly can. We're going to talk here about step one, step two being focus on drugs, drug interdiction, and then step three, of course, the last step that the pieces will be put in place are really going after those crimes such as murder, such as rape, et cetera. And so with that, I want to turn this over to the mayor, and then we'll have other folks come up as well, answer some questions, and then we'll do some closing. So, Mayor?
Thank you, Governor. I am very happy to be here, and thanks to all of you for being here today as well. I agree that the most important thing we can do as executives is keep our community safe. I am proud of the work that my administration has done to improve public safety in Anchorage. As we all know, Anchorage is the state's largest urban hub, and that provides us with a lot of economic benefits. We also have the largest network of resources, including healthcare, behavioral health services, and treatment facilities. Because of that, we have the responsibility to not only take care of our residents, but also to care for the people of Alaska, and we are proud to be able to do that. As leaders in this state, the governor and I care deeply about ensuring that our communities are safe and welcoming for everyone. And there are many opportunities for the state and municipality to collaborate and strengthen public safety. This MOU is a great example of how our teams can work together to ensure we are keeping people safe. And I just want to thank the governor and his teams for that work and for that collaboration. I am proud of my work on public safety and my team's commitment to community well-being. We have opened year-round shelter to ensure that people have a safe place to go where they can get connected to resources. This has also helped make our public spaces cleaner and more accessible to everyone. Now, for the first time in recent history, Anchorage has no large, long-term encampments. And to help keep our parks and trails safe and accessible for everyone, we passed new camping laws to prevent large, entrenched camps from forming. We've also successfully worked with the Anchorage Assembly to close loopholes in our criminal code, outlawing certain inappropriate and unsafe behavior in our public spaces like parks, sidewalks, and libraries, because we know this affects quality of life. The Anchorage Police Department is on the way to being fully staffed. With increasing staffing at APD and a fully staffed municipal prosecutor's office, we're holding people accountable for breaking the law. We now have the capacity, thanks to this MOU, to cross-designate our attorneys to work with state prosecutors. Over the last 12 months, municipal conviction rates have increased 71% from the previous 12 months. That's a huge accomplishment. Our police department has ramped up its focus on retail crimes. Since September, APD's retail blitz has resulted in over 145 cases, representing more than $100,000 in loss. Retail theft presents a great opportunity for the state and municipality to work together. We can take some of these cases from a misdemeanor to a felony and partner on prosecution. Since I took office in July 2024, my administration has been deliberate in our approach, working step by step to address our community's toughest challenges. We've built a solid foundation for a safer, cleaner, more accessible Anchorage, and this partnership with the state will add even more momentum. The goal of this MOU isn't short-term enforcement. It's to build a durable, systemic partnership between the state and the municipality, aligning authority, information sharing, and prosecutorial capacity so that quality of life enforcement becomes consistent and sustained. I look forward to continuing this partnership with the state of Alaska, with the governor and your team, and finding ways we can continue to work together to keep everyone safe. And I will now hand it off to Attorney General Cox.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Governor. When I came into this role last fall, the one issue that just kept coming up over and over again in conversations was the visible crime in Anchorage. It was the elephant in the room. And everybody saw it. Everybody also knew that it wasn't a simple problem. It's a mix of challenges. You've got limited law enforcement resources. You've got turf battles, jurisdictional turf battles. You got public disorder, retail theft, homelessness, drug use and addiction, and mental illness. Problems like that don't get solved overnight. They took years to develop, and it'll take time to turn things around. But we want to deal with this head on. Disorder brings crime, and order prevents it. And this joint quality of life initiative between the city and the state is really focused exactly on that. It's focused on the crimes that shape how people experience their city every day. And the central idea behind this initiative is simple. It's partnership. Problems like this don't sit neatly inside of one agency, one level of government, or one part of society. Retail theft affects retailers, consumers, the supply chain, and law enforcement. Public disorder touches on housing systems and public health providers, businesses, the families who want to use public spaces, and the police. Drug trafficking affects airports, cargo carriers, the mail system, financial networks, and law enforcement. And when these systems operate in silos, cases can fall through the cracks, and offenders will exploit this, and we want to stop that. But when we move in sync, outcomes can really change. And that's why this initiative is really built on an all of government, really an all of society effort that aligns the city, the state, law enforcement, prosecutors, investigators, and even private sector partners. And to help coordinate that effort on the ground, I asked one of our best and brightest and most seasoned prosecutors, John Skidmore, to lead it and bring all the pieces together. An important tool that the mayor just mentioned is cross-designation of prosecutors. Under this agreement that we signed with the city, certain prosecutors are now cross-designated both ways. It's really unprecedented that we would do this. The city prosecutors can now prosecute certain state felony offenses, including retail theft felonies, and prosecutors from our office, the law department, can pursue the municipal offenses when cases are referred by APD. This two-way cross-designation, the state and the city, both directions, bilateral, it really is unprecedented. And it means we can leverage each other's authorities and become force multipliers without the need for additional resources. And prosecutors can pursue the strongest and the best charges available, whether it's state law, whether it's municipal ordinance, and close the gaps that the governor mentioned that repeat offenders have learned to exploit. There are really two main parts of this initiative, retail theft and public disorder in public spaces, although drug crime sort of is involved in the background of both. And my counterpart, Eva, will talk a little bit more detail about retail theft. But I'll just briefly note that we're targeting a small group of repeat chronic offenders that are responsible for a disproportionate share of the theft that's occurring in our stores here in the city. And this work that we're doing is already producing stronger cases because we brought together cases that might have involved the same offenders, but were handled separately in separate courts and maybe separate prosecutors. We brought those together and consolidated them. We've also worked with retailers to identify whether there is any previously uncharged activity by those same defendants so that we can also pull those into and ultimately bring a stronger case that addresses the full scope of the defendant's conduct. I also want to recognize the leadership of the municipality, the mayor, that they've shown on public disorder in public spaces. The city has really stepped up enforcement in the last 6 months or a year on camping, right-of-way laws, and adopted some of these new municipal code offenses to address disorder, the disorder that the residents have been experiencing in this city. And importantly, the city has welcomed John Skidmore to the table so that the state and the city can tackle these problems and work these cases together. Another critical part of the strategy is the use and the future use that we'll be deploying of our civil authorities to combat the drug problem here in Alaska. We're targeting, of course, on the criminal side, the most serious drug offenders. We just had a press conference about this last month. But where prosecution alone isn't enough, we're preparing to use civil nuisance abatement tools to target the locations where chronic drug activity takes hold. And if we use those civil authorities carefully and lawfully, that can really help us shut down drug hotspots and restore neighborhoods that have been maybe written off for too long. Another part of the strategy that's worth mentioning is for low-level offenders, maybe first-time offenders that are willing to change their behavior. We're at the exploratory phase of a return-to-work style diversion program that will connect eligible defendants with employment, job training, GED programs, and community work service to help clean up the very city that they've harmed. We recently met with our partners in the Matsu Valley to talk about a diversion program that is already showing success there. where low-level offenders perform meaningful work to clean up neglected community property. This can be a model that would promote accountability. It would also benefit the city, and it would also have the added benefit of allowing prosecutors and law enforcement to stay focused on chronic offenders. Finally, an important part of this is public-private partnership. And we're talking to businesses about how we can work together, because government alone cannot solve these problems. Last fall, for example, we convened a meeting with the world's largest retailer to address theft and safety concerns at two of their most problematic stores, which happen to be in Anchorage. And that helped surface some of the repeat theft that has gone uncharged, but it also helped surface some of the less than ideal information sharing that exists and that we've since tried to remedy. We're working with airlines, for example, Alaska Airlines and other carriers, to cooperate on use best practices to cooperate with us on drug interdiction at the airport. We're working with the United States Postal Service to do a better job on interdicting drugs that are moving through the mail. And then we're starting to have conversations with the Anchorage business community as well to think about what are some other outside-the-box ideas that we can develop for this. And I'll just close with this. This problem, as I mentioned before, it won't be solved overnight. There's no shortcut. As the mayor said, there's no shortcut solution for this. This is about a durable partnership between the state and the city. Because Alaskans really deserve to have cities where businesses can thrive, and families can enjoy public spaces, and a place where the rules still matter. And with that, I'll turn it over to the municipal attorney, my counterpart, Eva Gardner.
Thank you. I'll keep my remarks short, but be available for questions. This is a collaboration that makes a lot of sense for public safety, because public safety in Anchorage is a joint project. Not everyone realizes that the state and the municipality share responsibility for prosecuting crime. The municipality prosecutes misdemeanors, crimes with a sentence of up to 1 year, and the state prosecutes felonies, everything above that. So our new partnership is designed to make sure that we have strong communication and coordination between our two levels of enforcement. We've done this on a smaller scale in the past. Occasionally, the municipality would embed prosecutors at the state to focus on certain types of crime, but this time, this is a broader scale collaboration. As the AG mentioned, and the mayor, one of the targets is retail theft. In 2025, the Anchorage Police Department established a dedicated retail detail unit. APD, through those efforts, has identified roughly 300 repeat offenders responsible for felony-level retail theft over the past few years. And these aren't one-offs. These are habitual offenders. Our new joint team of state and municipal prosecutors is now working closely with APD to carry its work through to prosecution. 2 of our prosecutors are authorized to bring felony theft charges, which, as the AG said, ensures we are able to bring the strongest charges possible against these repeat offenders. So the most serious cases are now being investigated and prosecuted through this joint initiative. And for the worst habitual offenders, where there aren't mitigating factors, we're not planning to offer plea deals. They can plead as charged or go to trial. We're also working with private industry. So APD and the task force members have been working directly with retailers and loss prevention teams to identify repeat offenders and strengthen cases. They're also working with businesses to identify strategies to reduce vulnerability of stores to retail theft. We are trying to provide full spectrum assistance to the private sector and really bring them into this process to ensure that we are as successful as possible. We've also begun conversations with other business groups and trade associations about further ways to partner in prevention efforts. So overall, over the past 1.5 years, 2 years, the municipality has made a lot of progress rebuilding its public safety teams. APD staffing is up. Our municipal prosecution is fully staffed for the first time since 2020. And partnering with the state, now that we have the people and the resources in-house to do this, is the strategic next step that will help us ensure that individuals who should be held accountable don't slip through the cracks. We've made a lot of progress breaking down silos within municipal departments, ensuring good feedback between prosecution, police, housing and health specialists, and we're really excited to be now breaking down the state municipal silo on public safety. Thank you.
We're going to open up for questions and answers now. We do have time for a couple of rounds of questions, so just keep that in mind.
For the mayor, How will your office track progress of this initiative, and are you planning, what metrics are you planning to release publicly, like during the year, not just at the 1 year mark?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Some of the benchmarks that we have internally have been around initially staffing up, making sure we have resources, and then around like our conviction rates. When it comes to other areas, I mean, we'll be looking at statistics as well that the police department uses now. I'm going to turn to the municipal attorney to add more to this, as she has been our point of contact in working on the task force and talking through some of those issues.
Thank you. So the goal of the criminal justice system isn't just to lock people up and put them in jail. It's to reduce crime, right? We want to have a deterrent effect. We want to make sure that people don't want to continue offending. If they do offend, they face consequences. So ensuring accountability also has the goal of trying to reduce recidivism. So I think we'll look over time to see if we're succeeding at what the crime rates are, and if we're seeing repeat offenders continually repeat offend. Reducing recidivism is one benchmark we'll be looking at, but also overall crime rates. Internally, I can speak for the municipal side. In prosecution, we do look at charges referred, decline dismissal, and conviction rates. And those are things that we can look at year over year. As the mayor said, our convictions for the past 12 months are up 71% over the prior 12 months. We also do look at our decline and dismissal rates. And I know from data that we looked at recently, our decline dismissal rate for theft cases is dramatically lower than it has been in years past, because that is an area of priority right now. So we do look at those metrics, and we will be happy to report them out.
Next, we have Chris Adlin with the Anchorage Daily News.
I've got a couple questions. The first one being, has there been any talk, or is there any kind of increase in services or resources corresponding to this beyond like prosecution and that? I mean, I know there's talk about kind of job training and those sort of services, but any other resources to address kind of some of the other issues that were talked about earlier: homelessness, mental health, substance abuse, that are coming with this as well, or is this strictly kind of a prosecutorial effort?
Sure, I'll lead off, and then I may ask Eva to supplement. But one of the interesting things about the MOU is it's not just about prosecution and cross designation. That's certainly an important part of it. It really is meant to be an all of government approach. And so there's a commitment for us to loop in public housing and public health specialists on both sides. And we've been having conversations with the Department of Corrections, for example, on the state side, and maybe even the Department of Labor, as we think about some of these diversion programs that I just mentioned that we're kind of exploring. So we're trying to bring in all of the government agencies that have something in this fight, because we realize it is a multifaceted problem, and it's not a problem that exists in sort of one single agency. And I know that's how the municipality has been dealing with this. I think they have, I'll let Eva talk about this, but I think they have weekly meetings where they bring in sort of an all of municipality approach as well.
I'll just make a comment before Ms. Gardner comes up to the mic here. But on the side of the municipality, we have had a big focus on ensuring that we have year-round shelter and that people can access services and have options. So, for example, the mobile crisis team, a clinician and a paramedic, we have proactively deployed. We have the mobile intervention team with the police department, the HOPE team, which is a clinician, and a police officer who does outreach to folks who are homeless. And we also have the impact team that has a broader area that they focus on in terms of outreach and connecting folks. And I think like with this collaboration, in addition to addressing gaps, it may also show us as we move through this where we need additional resources or how we need to shift those resources. And I think that that will be helpful too as we continually look for ways to provide folks options and make sure that they are connected with services and opportunities that they need. And so,
Thank you. That side of things has been top of mind, both, as the mayor said, within the municipality as we have increased enforcement of criminal laws, but also within the task force. So on the municipality side, we recognize if somebody is committing a crime because there are root causes, contributing factors, whether it's behavioral health, mental health, substance misuse, whatever it is, they're going to keep reoffending until they get out of that condition. So there has been a significant coordination, better strategic coordination of resources on the municipal side, building out of additional resources to support people and give them paths out of their situation, if they need shelter, treatment, mental health support, working on that. And it is something that is baked into the task force. Our memorandum of understanding, the MOU, inside does require us to have housing and health specialists participate, recognizing that just prosecution alone, law enforcement alone is not going to solve the problem. We don't want to just be putting people into a revolving door of the criminal justice system. If what they need is help, we want to be able to address that as well.
Hang on, Brett. That's a great question, actually. As soon as you asked that, the wheels were spinning. But there's a couple things to think about. I agree with the municipal attorney and the mayor that when you're dealing with, especially when you're dealing with some of our chronic homelessness, there's some psychological issues that need to be addressed. There's some substance abuse issues that need to be addressed. There's no doubt about it. But what also can't be lost, though, is when we're talking about theft in a store, it's not like a kid going in, they see a bar of candy, they want to take a bar of candy. You got some sophisticated systems occurring here in which the theft, and I want the people of Alaska to know this is very important. This isn't thousands of people individually stealing things or thousands of people individually committing rapes or thousands of people individually committing murders. Fortunately, it's generally a very small percentage of the population. When I said earlier that this has kind of been baked into the Alaska culture of tolerance, of just let it alone, we'll live with it, that's coming to an end. That's coming to an end because when you do that, and I don't want to get into the broken window theory, et cetera, but when you allow that to happen, it doesn't take care of itself and get better. It's got to be addressed. It's got to be addressed through some of the approaches that were just mentioned for those that have issues, mental issues, substance abuse issues. But for those that don't have issues, but they see this as a way to make a living and commit a crime, it's going to be kind of difficult to say to some of those people, hey, guess what? We've got a blue-collar training program that we just introduced a bill on, and we'd like you to partake in it. A lot of those folks, this is their job, is to prey upon the businesses and the people of Alaska and Anchorage. And so you asked the question earlier, how are you going to measure metrics? Usually we do it on a one-year basis with the FBI statistics and so forth to take a look at it. But I think what you're going to be able to see are businesses saying, hey, things are getting better. We're actually seeing less theft. We're actually seeing the people that we know, and oftentimes they know, and these are some of the gaps we're trying to close, who are actually involved in this systemic theft. And then it goes deeper than that. Who do they sell, or who do they fence, or who do they give these things to that they're stealing so they get money for it? We're going to be digging down deeper and deeper and deeper. For those that need help, for the reasons I said, for those that want help, for the reasons I said, we're going to do everything we can to get them help. For those that are in this for the business of crime, and this is how they're going to make a living, and it's just this is what they've done because there really hasn't been consequences, I think they are going to see a huge change. And when we start to really hammer hard, for example, the drug interdiction component of this, because a lot of these different crimes are tied together, I think you're going to see a huge difference, not just at the end of the year statistics, but as I mentioned, you're going to have people come and you'll hear them, you'll talk to your friends. We're seeing less folks on the streets bothering us. You'll talk to the businesses. We're seeing less theft. We don't see the people anymore that we once saw. Those will be anecdotal. Then you'll get the real statistics from the FBI. But the goal is You can't just talk about it. This can't be just a one-off. It's really about execution. It's really about finding where the holes are, where the gaps are, which we're doing now, signing understandings and agreements that maintain the sovereignty of Anchorage and the sovereignty of the state, but where there's collaboration. And then you execute, and you dig deeper, and you execute, and you root out this stuff, and you execute. At the same time, you're helping people that need help. But in the end, it's not about saying we're going to do something. It's about actually executing it where the criminals know they're going to stop what we're doing. They know who we are. They're going to prosecute us. We're not going to get out of this. It's going to become more, the whole idea is to become more uncomfortable for those people to exist in the situation, the state that they're in now, at the expense of businesses, individual Alaskans, the state, and the city.
Thank you. I got one more question, and that would be, who approached who in this situation? You know, was it the state approaching the municipality, or vice versa? And was there like a straw that broke the camel's back, I guess, a data point or specific incident that kind of prompted these discussions?
Well, I would say from my perspective, and then we'll have the mayor come up, but we've put in a lot of resource into prosecution, into our corrections. I mean, that's been a hot topic, corrections. We've put resources into our public safety, our Department of Public Safety, our troopers, et cetera, VPSOs. And we've been looking at the crime statistics every year. This is my 7th year going in my 8th year. Crime statistics every year, and we see that we're driving them down. However, we knew that we started at a high baseline, but to really make the difference, we then examined all of our municipalities. And the numbers were disturbing in Anchorage. So I approached the mayor several months ago. But, you know, when we had the conversation, the mayor was going in that direction anyway. The mayor was concerned. I mean, if you look at some of the assembly meetings and so forth, the mayor was concerned about what was happening out there. The mayor was concerned about large encampments that you would see coming down Fifth Avenue and other places. You know, our conversations, she was concerned about. So this was not it's interesting. This really was a good thing. This was not a arm twisting. This was not an ultimatum. There was none of that stuff. It was, look, we're looking at our statistics, and this is what we're finding in Anchorage, and then having a conversation with the mayor is saying, yeah, we have issues in Anchorage. So we both basically said, what would happen if we worked together to close these gaps? But I'll let the mayor speak.
That's how I remember it too. So thank you, Governor. I appreciate that. You know, we have been very focused on public safety and most important job of government, whether that's the municipality or the state or federal government for that matter. And, you know, we've got really great momentum, and it became clear that to continue the momentum and to also tackle, you know, some of these big issues, we needed to work together. And so I'm really grateful to the governor and his team for this partnership and this collaboration, which, as you've heard, is not intended to be a one-time thing, but a long-term relationship where we really leverage our positions and our resources to make progress, not just for Anchorage, but for all of Alaska.
We'll come back to Johnson Kuhn with Alaska's News Source.
I think this is probably best for the Attorney General, if you don't mind. When we recently spoke, you had mentioned that Mr. Skidmore was working with a list of about 300 repeat offenders. I was wondering if you could kind of elaborate what criteria puts someone on that list. And this has kind of been touched on a little bit already, I apologize, but how do you plan to avoid pulling people in who are mainly, you know, in need of services while still focusing on the, quote, worst of the worst?
People put on the list because they stole stuff or they committed crimes.
Sure. So, you know, I think the way this sort of all came about, as we discussed, I think last week, is we started working with the city, and we started working with APD, and we the state and the city had a shared goal of combating these quality of life offenses. You're asking about kind of retail theft, and I think what we did is we asked the APD for kind of the worst of the worst offenders that had committed multiple retail theft, crimes and had stolen the most amount. And they put together a list of 300. I think since then we've actually talked about more. And we started looking at the cases. And that's when we noticed that some of these cases were it'd be the same defendant, different cases, maybe handled by different prosecutors. And so there was a way to consolidate some of those cases. And then the next step was also to talk with the retailers. And as we're consolidating these cases to make them stronger against these repeat chronic offenders, we found that there were uncharged activity that was still within the statute of limitations that we could then include into these cases. And so for these sort of smaller group, as the governor was saying, the smaller group that is responsible for a disproportionate share of the retail theft in the city, we're going hard. We're not offering deals. You can take a deal. You can take the plea, or go to trial. We're not doing deals for that. But I think on the flip side, when we see kind of a first-time offender, whether it's on either side of the coin of retail theft or public disorder offenses, if we see these low-level offenders, maybe it's a first time, we're gonna think about diversion programs and figure out a way to get them back on track. And we're thinking about a whole variety of tools that are in a prosecutor's toolkit to deal with those. And then another part you mentioned, sort of how do you measure success, and I'll just reemphasize, success isn't going to happen overnight. Some of these crime statistics that we look at, they lag. So we might be getting statistics this year about a year that occurred a year or two ago, and so we might not necessarily see that. But one of the things we can do to measure success on a diversion program is to start tracking it, right? To see about an offender going through a diversion program, tracking it to see if they actually completed it, if they complied with the rules, if they went back and committed a crime again. That'll tell us more about what diversion programs are working, and it'll also tell us more about some of the repeat offenders. So we're going to learn a lot in this partnership, but it isn't going to be sort of a short-term shortcut solution that we can say, in October, by October, you're going to know whether we've solved it or not. This is going to be a collaborative, qualitative partnership that hopefully lasts for years and years. I mean, we'll have to look at individual cases on a case by case basis, but I can't. I'm not going to talk about like the 300 that we initially started with, and who's on there and for what reasons, and speak generally about each and every one of those folks. But to your question, you wanted to know kind of how that came about. What were we sort of looking for? But we're going to take each of these cases on a case-by-case basis and do the right thing.
Following up on that, just a reminder, I mean, every prosecution, every defendant has a right to a defense attorney. And so every defendant here, if somebody's accused of a crime, if they are prosecuted, from the repeat offender list, their defense attorney has ready access to the prosecutors to talk to them if there's a reason why they should not be on that list and treated that way. So we have that constitutional safeguard in our criminal justice system that helps safeguard against that concern.
Go to the governor for
I
wrap
just,
up.
what's your name? Great question. So you brought up the number 300 repeat offenders on the list. And do we know how many of those are in need of diversion programs to get them off the list? I'm paraphrasing. I'm sure that's going to be figured out, how many of these people are stealing repeatedly to deal with, the question would be what, but let's say for a moment, they're stealing because they have psychological, mental health issues and they're on the streets and they need to eat. We're going to figure that out through the process which once they're arrested and find out about that. There may be some that have addictions. We're going to find that out. But you're also going to find out there are people that just simply steal. They have a system set up. These are not just people stumbling in through Walmart, picking themselves up off the floor, grabbing a handful of candy. Some of them are. Some of those people we may be able to help. But there's going to be others that they have a system. You know, you remember the catalytic converter cutters. That takes a lot of work, planning, forethought. It's almost probably more sophisticated than getting a real job that doesn't involve crime. Those people need to be dealt with as well. And we have no doubt that some of those folks are on the list and will be dealt with. But I just want to make sure that people of Alaska understand that there are alternatives to committing crime in the state of Alaska. There's ways to make a living, and there's ways to deal with your issues if you have issues, and we'll work with you on that. But for those that don't fall in those categories, but they have figured out that this is a way to make a dollar, make a living, make a good living, it's going to be a problem for them. And as we really start to bear down on, for example, the drug interdiction, you see what's happening at the federal level. You're in a boat off Venezuela and you're headed towards some other country to sell drugs to the United States, you're probably going to get bombed. If you're in the Pacific with the cartels, same thing is happening. And the president just formed a new concept with Latin American states, in which many of those states went to the first meeting, in which they're probably going to be using what they refer to as kinetic resources, bombing these camps in various places. So that's going to be disrupted down there. It's going to be disrupted up here as well. But for those people that truly are looking for help, we're going to do everything we can to get them. For those people that truly aren't, we're going to help them with some other types of resources too. Yeah, yeah. 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 Yes. I think they're good people that made some mistakes, that have become addicted to drugs, that we can help with resources. There's no doubt about it. And I believe there's people out on the streets that have mental issues, psychological issues, that we're going to have to figure out a way to deal with them as well in a compassionate manner. I'm just saying, I think there's a bunch of others, though, that don't fit those categories. Okay, well, it's kind of I'm going to let the mayor speak first, and then I'll say a few words.
Thank you, Governor. Keeping people safe is my number one job at the municipality, and I appreciate and am grateful for this opportunity to partner with and collaborate with the governor and his team. This is how we build on the momentum and the progress made. This is how we make our communities safer. And I look forward to the work ahead, and I'm particularly grateful to, again, the governor, Attorney General Cox, Mr. Skidmore, and Municipal Attorney Eva Gardner as well for this collaboration and the work that has gone into ensuring that we don't just work together for the short term, but we lay a foundation for this ongoing partnership. Thank you all for being here today.
Thanks, Mayor. And I couldn't agree more. This is not a one-off. This is going to be something that we figure out all the holes. We have discussions, collaboration, understandings, agreements. We work together. And it's our hope that shortly you'll start to get at least some anecdotal feedback from businesses, from individuals that, hey, things appear to have changed. And then maintaining that so that we can change. And I mentioned this earlier. It's very important. I came up here in 1983. Others have come up here before. Others were born here. But there is it could be argued, a culture in Alaska that is more tolerant to some of these behaviors we're talking about. It first starts with ending the tolerance for theft, ending the tolerance for drug sales and drug transportation, ending the tolerance for sexual assault and other terrible crimes. You got to have a cultural shift, a value shift in that. And I think it's happened in Alaska. I think it's happening right now. And you don't get a safer Alaska unless you have a safer Anchorage and vice versa. I mean, it's not like Anchorage is on its own island or the state of Alaska is on its own island. We're not. We have different jurisdictions for a whole host of reasons, but I think it's a positive that the leadership in Anchorage, the leadership of the state have come together to say, hey, look, these are all our people. Safer Anchorage is safer Alaska, vice versa. And so I would say keep an eye on the anecdotal feedback first, then we'll get some hard data feedback. But this is a multi-year approach. But I think you're going to see us slicing off crime numbers. I think you're going to see us slicing off behavior issues. I think you're going to start to see that over time. Currently, Alaska is about 46th in the nation in crime. I think once we really start to make an inroad here in Anchorage, you're going to see that move up into the 30s, hopefully 20s, and before several years is over, we're one of the safest states there is. We can do it. This is something that can be done. We know how to do it. We just have to have the will to do it. We just change the culture, the values around that. We've made some real inroads across the state. I know that these guys behind me from the municipality are committed. And so I think it's going to be a positive. I think there's some positive things are going to happen for all of us. So anyway, I want to thank all of you for being here on a beautiful, sunny, but cold day. And it's great to be here in the great state of Alaska. So anyway, thank you very much.